The division series rages on. Two teams have advanced to the championship series. Two more teams are on the brink of clinching their spots in the NLCS. It's episode number 26 of Leading Off, as tonight ESPO and I continue our coverage of the postseason. Plus, we have an all-new top of the order, the top three worst managerial decisions of all time in the Major League Baseball postseason. Got to be a lot of fun stuff to cover. ESPO has his pick of the day as always. Plus, we answer some of your fan-submitted questions, postseason edition, on this Tuesday edition of Leading Off. And once again, we are live. This is the 26th episode of Leading Off, live from Studio 69 in New Jersey and REM Studio in Staten Island, New York, airing exclusively on Twitch and powered by StreamYard. And welcome back to the show on this Tuesday, October the 12th, 2021. I'm your host, Rich Rivera, and I'm being joined by the man of just four letters, ESPO.
Thank you, Rich. I thought you were gonna. I didn't know what to expect with your intro there. You're always a bit of a wild card, but as always, it is a pleasure to be leading off with you on this Tuesday edition.
Yep, and only the second time. The second time that we come live on a Tuesday. Obviously, we had some scheduling issues lately, but we're trying to be back on track with our weekly episodes. Obviously, our last show was on Monday. Our next show will be on Monday. So I thank you guys for staying tuned to all our announced changes when it comes to the schedule. And obviously, it's going to get a little crazier with the offseason. But until then, still stick with us. We have a lot of postseason coverage. Again, as I mentioned in the monologue, championship series is almost upon us. We have two teams that already advanced. The ALCS officially made. The Boston Red Sox versus the Houston Astros, and the Yankee fan in me wants to kill myself.
I was just about to say, Rich, we were discussing it a bit before the show. Who the hell are you going to root for as a Yankee fan? I mean, between the Astros and the Red Sox, who do you hate more? And I mean, what do you got to say, bud?
I guess you got to chalk it up to an early FSQ. Obviously, we'll have more fans submitted questions later on tonight, but. Call me crazy, but I'm going to choose the Red Sox between the two. I just, again, the animosity between the franchises, I cannot root for the Houston Astros after what they did in 2017. And I don't want people to say, oh, get over it, whatever. If you're not cheating, you ain't trying. Fuck them. Fuck the Astros. Had enough of seeing them being successful. And honestly, this is the worst case scenario to see these two in the championship series. And listen, when it comes down to it, Boston playing with house money. A great quote that my friend, my good friend AJ had said, playing with house money. This team was not expected to be where they're at. This team was supposed to be a fourth place finish. And granted, about a couple weeks ago, they were very close to being a fourth place finish in the American League East. And now they are just 4 wins away from being in the World Series. So, kudos to them from pulling it together. And it tells you how good that analytics front office is. How great they are with Alex Cora at the helm, a guy that I have mentioned on this show should be the manager of the year for 2021. And he's proven why he's that guy. I am going to pull for the Red Sox, but rather jump off the Verrazano Bridge than root for any team in this series.
Yeah, I mean, considering the other options, that might be your best bet. But they will be facing a very hot Astros team as well, who just took down the White Sox earlier. 10-1 to close out that series. So our hopes of an all-Sox championship series were dashed, unfortunately.
And once again, other American League teams proving how fraudulent AL Central teams truly are. But that is here nor there. Make sure to have downloaded the Twitch app and subscribe to Leading Off _podcast. It's the easiest way to stay tuned on our live episodes as they show up on Twitch. Because again, it's easy enough to try to follow us along, but these schedules have been crazy lately. So I think the best way is obviously subscribe to us on the app, download the app, and then you'll get the notifications when we go live. Obviously, a lot of craziness happening with Twitch itself. So just if you have a Twitch account, make sure to change your passwords. So that's just another PSA. But let's move on, ESPO, to our opening bit that we always start off with, Ducks on the Pond. We have more news the Shed on Baseball. We started with injuries, postseason edition, of course. The Dodgers still without Clayton Kershaw and Max Muncy as they trail the Giants in the NLDS 2-1. The Giants have been playing unbelievable ball, and they just continue to prove the critics wrong of why they are the top dog of the National League West. But yeah, the Dodgers are definitely missing that firepower from Max Muncy. Kershaw slated to miss the entire postseason. Muncy is hopeful if the Dodgers get to the World Series, but they're missing a guy who is possibly could be a top 3 MVP candidate this year.
You mentioned one word in there that is the most important, Rich, and that's if. If Muncy comes back for the Dodgers, that is a huge game changer for them. But they still got work to do, and they're in big trouble tonight. Obviously, they need to get this win. Otherwise, 106-win season goes down the drain.
We have another injury update. Tom Waspel, who in our chat says his heart's still broken by the Yankees. Another injury update coming from the Twitch chat. And
join the club.
Mr. Tom. Yes, we're enjoying golf season right now and football season, not really. Other injuries to shed note on. We got Garrett Richards, who's day-to-day with a left hamstring strain. Brent Suter, day-to-day for the Brewers, right oblique strain. So 2 relievers going down at the wrong time for their respective teams. And Garrett Richards also surprisingly turned it around this season since adopting a bullpen role. And honestly, with that arm, it's probably a role that's best suited for him moving forward.
Yeah, no, Richards has been one of those guys for the Sox that's really come out of nowhere this season. He's kind of struggled in previous years, but like the Red Sox, they got a cast of characters, man. A lot of veterans and cast-offs, and they're making it work.
Yeah, absolutely. We move on to our next note. The San Diego Padres officially letting go Jace Tingler. We mentioned that they were reportedly looking to move on from Tingler last week. It became official over the weekend. Some replacement candidates, very interesting names, very fun names to see here. Buck Showalter, Bruce Bochy, Ron Washington, one of which is a bona fide Hall of Famer, maybe Buck Showalter as well. But yeah, you have some old school names in there. Not obviously some high leverage candidates. Could be a Jace Tingler 2.0 for all I know that shows up. But the Padres have let go of their manager after having such high expectations and not even cracking a postseason spot.
Yeah, the Padres, obviously one of the biggest disappointments in the league this year. No, actually not one of, probably the biggest in the entire major leagues. So It was obvious that Tingler had to go. So we'll see who they hire. I do like some of the names you mentioned. I'm a big Ron Washington fan. He's done a great job as a coach for the Braves in the last few years, and I think he deserves another shot at a head gig.
Yeah, and for Bruce Bochy, he would literally have to be pulling a Tony La Russa coming out of retirement to manage a different team. But for Mr. Bochy, this would be a team he's previously managed. Previously a Padres manager from 1995 to 2006. Pretty long tenure for San Diego, who was pretty abysmal before he moved on to the Giants and ended up winning 3 World Series with that team. But yeah, so an interesting name tossed in there. And not noted in our ticker, but the Yankees are planning on retaining their current manager, Aaron Boone. We'll talk more about that on Savages of the Bronx with Tom and I later at 8 p.m. Eastern time, but had to make a note of Boone possibly, reportedly staying with New York.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Right.
Someone was calling me. I had to put my phone down. My bad.
You know what?
But no, I think it's my bad. But I think Boone is. It's tough because it really comes down to the debate of, is the manager really making the decisions at the end of the day, or is it the front office? And I mean, the regular season results are there, but in the playoffs, they're just not. And I guess it is easy to scapegoat the manager. And I know he said it was a pretty obvious decision to fire Tingler back then for the Padres, but obviously they haven't had the success the Yankees have. So I think Boone probably deserves one last year, just one more, just for lack of other better options out there.
And when it comes down to it, again, I'll shed more light on it later tonight on my other show. But if the Yankees plan on replacing Aaron Boone with Aaron Boone 2.0, then you might as well keep the same guy in office.
Exactly.
It makes no sense. It's also going to go to show that the Yankees aren't looking to get away from their current system with their front office and how they want to structure this team, which is a shame. And at least if you're saying you're going to let Aaron Boone go, maybe there's some momentum towards that change. But to say that you're going to retain him, it goes to show that this organization is probably going to keep, its status quo going into 2022, which is a tough look for this team that desperately needs some structural changes. So we'll keep you posted on it. Obviously, all this that move not official yet, but a move that is official. It looks like Dio Epstein will not be joining the Mets front office as their sad face ESPO now joins the program. Epstein and the organization, they did have a conversation, I believe, of the last few days, and couldn't come to terms on an agreement. So they are moving away amicably, and then Theo is going to figure out his next step. So Met fan ESPO, how do you feel?
Yeah, when I heard that news, I was definitely very bummed to find out, but I never really got my hopes up in the first place that he was going to come here. I don't know. I guess it wasn't for Theo. He would only want to leave the major league front office if it was the perfect GM situation. And I hate to say it, but there's just too much turmoil going on in Queens right now for Theo to want to come in. So it's definitely a disappointment, but still some other good candidates out there.
Yes, sir. I don't have the names of what candidates it could be for the Mets president of baseball operations job. But obviously, Theo's a big fish in a very, very small pond. And Epstein will definitely find work somewhere. But unfortunately, it is not in Queens. So we'll see and track it. And hopefully by maybe mid-November, we'll have a better idea of what the front office is going to look like for the New York Mets and the New York Yankees at that rate, because there's a lot of conversation happening there. All right, let's move forward with our next segment, the ESPO pick of the day. And before we do that, I'd like to remind you that Leading Off is on YouTube, so make sure to like, share, and subscribe to our show. You're going to see more episodes uploaded on our YouTube page in the coming weeks. All right, ESPO, you have the floor, sir. It is time for the ESPO pick of the day. I know your options are pretty slim as the teams dwindled down. 2 more teams have been eliminated in the postseason, so you really don't have much to kind of go off of. So what do you got for me, bud?
Well, Richard, as we all know, it's well documented my struggles with the ESPO TD.
Oh, no shit.
But I got to ride with an underdog tonight. Let's go with the San Francisco Giants money line. It is plus 140 on DraftKings, so some decent value. We have Anthony DeSclafani pitching for the Giants, and we also have Walker Buehler going on short rest. I just feel like this Giants team smells blood in the water, and they know they can knock the Dodgers out right here, and they don't want this thing to go back to 5 games, back to San Francisco. So I think they're going for the gut punch right here tonight.
So this is it. You're saying this is the swan song on the 2021 season for the Los Angeles Dodgers.
Yes, sir.
Which means there's going to be a 5th game in San Francisco, folks. Yeah, you heard it here first on Leading Off. But yeah, you mentioned it. Giants are smelling blood. They've been playing some crazy good baseball. They are not frauds. They proved that early on in the season when they just kept winning games.
We just keep
the Giants
doubting
have been on an incredible run. Their pitching has been phenomenal. Logan Webb had a hell of a start against the Dodgers the other day, and now it's DeSclafani's turn. A bit of a journeyman. He's been around the league and had a real breakout season with the Giants this year. He's opposing the Dodgers' Walker Buehler, who I don't think had the best start his last time out, but it's going to be a heavyweight fight as it's been throughout this series. I feel like the Dodgers are going to end up taking this game. It's going to be a 2-2 series after tonight, and I hope for it because that's what makes the game of baseball great. And that's what makes the postseason great. But the ESPO pick of the day says otherwise. Giants over the Dodgers, the money line plus 140, you said? So
yes,
there you have it.
I mean, look, people have been betting against the Giants all year long and just doubting them and figuring, when's the magic going to end? I don't know. I've been talking about how great the Dodgers have been all year, but the Giants they've just been a little bit better. So I'm riding with them tonight.
And that is ESPO's pick of the day. But Corey Fabs' pick for Mets manager, he made known in our Twitch chat here. I want Edgardo Alfonzo for the next Mets manager. Dude won a minor league championship a few years back and then got the shaft by the old regime. How do you feel about Edgardo Alfonso Espo as the possible next manager of the New York Mets?
I love Fonzie, of course. Great player, great ambassador for the franchise, but I'm just not sure I want another Mets minor leaguer, former Mets minor league manager, managing the big league club after what we had from Rojas the last 2 years. I mean, given they are different people, different personalities, but I just think the Mets personally, they need a veteran manager that's been there, done that. And look, again, the front office is making the decisions now, but I feel like the Mets need an old timer.
Who would be your pick then?
My pick, again, maybe we were discussing some names before the show, but I'm gonna say Buck Showalter. He's won everywhere he's gone. Last time Baltimore was relevant. I'll more on Buck Showalter later for different reasons. But no, I do think he's a great manager, and like I said, he's had success at every stop that he's been in, whether it's been Detroit, not as much with Texas, but Baltimore. He was their last good manager, so I think he deserves another shot.
Showalter, the unlucky misfortune. No, that sounds like an oxymoron. Buck Showalter with the misfortune of managing teams just before they went on championship runs, as represented on Espo's shirt, the Diamondbacks being one of those teams after he left town, and Diamondbacks ended up winning the 2001 World Series. But more on that particular World Series in a few moments. But make sure to follow us on Twitter at LOffPodcast. You can follow Espo at
The Life of Espo.
And you can follow me at Rich J. Rivera. Our segment for tonight, our huge main course here, is the top of the order. And of course, that's been our segment where we take a topic and we list our top three, whether it's a best of moment, it's a worst of moment. And tonight, Espo, it is a worst of moment. And the worst of moments we're going to cover are the absolute worst managerial decisions in MLB postseason history, which was an idea from my very own co-host here, Espo. A great idea here with the three worst managerial decisions in MLB and postseason history. And of course, if you're here on Twitch, we'd like to see what you guys feel are the three worst, or just the worst overall. So, Espo, we're going to kick it off with your number 3 worst managerial decision in postseason history.
Thank you, Rich. It is quite ironic that I was just mentioning Mr. Showalter for the candidacy of the Mets manager position, because he checks in at number 3 here in the 2016 American League wildcard game. It was the 11th inning, a tie game against the Toronto Blue Jays. 2 men on base, 2 outs. He has Ubaldo Jimenez on the mound. He's got his ace closer, Zach Britton, warming up in the bullpen, who's been lights out the entire year. But for some godforsaken reason, he leaves Jimenez in the game. And on the very next pitch, the first pitch of Mr. Encarnacion's at bat, I don't know why I'm calling everyone Mr. It's like I'm describing a crime scene for some reason.
Shit.
But Encarnacion obviously hits that epic moonshot of a home run, and the Orioles go home. And since then, we have not heard a peep from them. They haven't even sniffed the playoffs since, and it just seems like that was the death knell of the Buck Showalter Orioles.
Yeah, I like the future implications you kind of threw in there. And for those of you who probably joined us while Espo was talking to the Showalter image, I probably thought it was Showalter actually talking himself. But yeah, I think it was in this very press conference that Showalter was asked, why not use Zach Britton? I think he came out with something along the lines of, yeah, he was fine. We didn't put him in there. We just wrote Ubaldo. So it was a very confusing decision. Britton was okay to pitch. We've seen instances like this in other postseasons. Actually, not mentioned on any of our list was the misuse or the no use of Garrett Cole in Game 7 of the 2019 World Series.
Very good mention.
I mean, this is something that seems to happen every so often in the postseason. You know, a manager will misuse or not use a pitcher they have available for whatever reason. You know, and that's what it comes down to. Like our kind of like a theme of the night. You have a lot of say that's coming from the front office of what matchups they want to see and how you want to manage this game. And Showalter, being an old school manager, you wouldn't think would probably follow that sort of guideline. I don't know what happened there, and it was a weird call. And It costed the Orioles in that series, and they haven't had success since, as you mentioned. My number 3, I mentioned him before, and here he is, Bob Brenly in the 2001 World Series against the Yankees. Now, obviously, this is at number 3 because the Diamondbacks would end up going on to win the World Series that year. But he put his young closer, Byung-Hyun Kim, to close out Game 4 of the World Series against the Yanks. The Yankees came back, won that game. Game 5, Diamondbacks have the lead again. And maybe they could go with a different pitcher to help out the young kid instead of, putting him out there again. And they put him out there again. And the Yankees, once again, came back and ended up winning that game against them. Again, Diamondbacks won the World Series, so it's like one of those things, all right, whatever. Like, it didn't mean anything. But it's such, I don't know what he was thinking, putting a young closer out there in the Bronx the night after he just had this huge, they lost this huge game where they could have had a 3-1 advantage and ended up tying the series. Bonehead move from Brenly, but again, ended up working out for Arizona.
Yeah, this is a little before my time in terms of remembering it live, so I'm definitely more relying on historical research here. But Brenly definitely made some boneheaded moves that series. He was ultimately vindicated because they won it. But yeah, I mean, how can you just do that to Kim like that? A young pitcher, and just the pressure he was under in the Bronx, and you'd never see that happen today. Teams are much better with taking care of their pitchers, and it's definitely one of those gaffes that kind of gets shaken off to the side a little bit because the Diamondbacks ended up winning. Mm-hmm. But had they lost that series, this could definitely be higher on the list.
Yeah, and you kind of see a theme in baseball, especially over the last few years. The be-all, end-all isn't always the closer ending these big games. The last, I want to say it was last out of each of the, I think it was like 7 of the 8 World Series were non-closer pitchers that ended up closing out the games, whether it was starting pitchers like a guy like Julio Urias or Charlie Morton. I think Daniel Hudson actually might be one of the only closers who closed out a World Series. So, I mean, you got to kind of go with who's hot, and Byung-Hyun Kim did not have it in that series, so it was just a bonehead move. But again, D-backs won. Your number 2, Espo.
Number 2, this one is very much recent, as in last year's World Series, and this was in Game 6 when Kevin Cash took Blake Snell out of the game, who was absolutely dealing at the time. He had gone 5 1/3 innings, only about 70 pitches, and he was keeping the Dodgers off the board. And should the Rays hold on to win that game, they're forcing a Game 7, and they definitely have all the momentum in that case because they're coming back in the series, and I think they probably go on to win that series. And that had so much more pressure to the Dodgers if they didn't win it last year, this year. So I think Kevin Cash, he's very much reliant on the analytics, which got the Rays very far in the regular season this year. But as the old saying goes, you live by the sword, you die by the sword. And I think Kevin Cash definitely regrets this move very much.
This is a sort of situation where, yeah, you punish Cash for making that move, Snell being removed after throwing 73 pitches, and replaced him with Nick Anderson, who had struggled in that postseason series, ended up giving the game tying and go ahead runs in that same inning. Dodgers end up winning 3-1, but there you go. Here's another thing: Rays only put up 1 run that entire game against the Dodgers. So obviously there was going to be some overmanagement that was going to eventually end up happening. And in that case, yeah, you don't pull Snell, but you never know if the Dodgers come back in that game anyway. But you know what? That's why it's not your number 1. So yeah, it was a bonehead move from Cash to make that move. And again, that's an organization. That's organizational coaching right there. You can't think that's all on Kevin Cash.
You gotta, yeah, that's true. But I just feel like in that moment, you gotta kind of just say, fuck the numbers,
fuck the
analytics, and you just gotta trust your gut.
Yep.
But that's why the Dodgers are champs, the Rays are not, and Rays are home right now too. So
we'll get into that in a little bit. My number 2 is another Yankee series. Yeah, Rich is going to be all Yankee boy for these. 2003 Game 7 of the ALCS, a Yankees Red Sox classic. The Sox had the lead on the Yankees and Pedro Martinez was looking fantastic up until the late part of the game. And you go into I think this was the 8th inning. Grady Little has a chance to pull Pedro out and get a reliever. And I believe it was Alan Embry at the time who was warming up in the pen, and he decides to stick with the future Hall of Famer Pedro. Pedro ends up giving up the game tying run. I'm still thinking about the last series here. Yankees, Red Sox tied at 5. Obviously leads to the big Aaron Boone moment. In extras, Yankees go to the World Series 2003, losing the Marlins. But it was a wild move, and it's a move that you can only get away with back then, because that shit would not happen in 2021.
No, it would not. No, I don't think Pedro would have ever been in that situation to begin with in modern times. But yeah, Grady Little, obviously, he's no longer managing, but sort of not the worst manager to come across in Boston. But I just think this was kind of the beginning of the end for him. This series, them losing that series, and this inning was a huge reason why. Huge, just crucial implications. I mean, Red Sox go on to win that game. They may very well win that series. Maybe they end the curse a year before, and we don't get that epic 2004 ALCS, which I know holds a very soft spot in your heart. But, it's crazy to think about the future implications of some of these errors.
Absolutely. And obviously it continued the great Yankees-Red Sox rivalry. Zip Shooter 28 had said Boone signed his contract to be the Yankee manager that day in 2003. Absolutely. It's easy to kind of throw in that moment that Boone had and say like, oh, that's a good like fallback. Oh, he was the guy that
maybe it never happened
if
Grady Little doesn't do what he did.
But yes, it is a crazy moment. And Espo, you did say that it was one of the worst managerial decisions by a Red Sox manager, but it's not the worst. So what was the worst then?
John McNamara, I'm sorry for all you old heads listening, the 1986 World Series. Yes, we know it was good old Billy Buckner who had the ball go through his legs, but
look at that ass.
Oh yeah, real.
I actually never realized how good his ass looked until I saw this picture. But continue.
So yes, anyways, back to baseball. He should have never been on the field in the first place in the bottom of that 10th inning. John McNamara, he says it wasn't sentimental reasons that he kept Buckner on the field, but I think it's pretty common knowledge amongst a lot of baseball fans that it kind of was. Buckner, he was an older player, kind of at the tail end of his career, and key part of that Red Sox team. So McNamara, having a soft spot, wants to leave him in to be on the field when they clinch the World Series and end the curse. But fate would have other plans. As we all know, the rest is history. The ball goes through Buckner's legs. The Mets win Game 6, end the series, and the curse goes on.
Yes, and coincidentally, it's also my number one as well, John McNamara leaving in Bill Buckner to play first base. Dave Stapleton, not really a known name, but should have been the man that should have been in that game. He was used heavily as a defensive replacement for Buckner late in games, and they had another reason why not have Dave Stapleton to finish that game. But you just mentioned there was a soft spot for Buckner, wanted to see him clinch the World Series with him on the field, and unfortunately, the absolute polar opposite happened. And yes, as you said, the rest is history. And there you have one of the greatest moments in baseball history, not for Bill Buckner, but one of the greatest moments in baseball history, one of the greatest games in the history of baseball, all thanks to a bad managerial decision from John McNamara.
Thank you, John McNamara.
That is our number one moment in our number one worst managerial decision postseason history. So good stuff.
Could be more in these playoffs, though. You never know.
1,000%. I'm sure we're gonna get one that's gonna be like, huh? But we'll cover that and more as we move on into the postseason. But again, I'm gonna shit on our other manager, Aaron Boone. We just mentioned him in a positive note, but if you tune into Savages in the Bronx, 8 p.m. Eastern time with my co-host Tom and I, we're gonna talk about the Yankees, kind of cover their 2021 season, their wild card bounce, and preview what the plans are for the offseason. So it should be a lot of fun. Make sure to follow us.
Spending money, baby.
What's
That's what
that?
they should be. Spending money. That's what they
Oh,
need
yeah,
to do.
yeah, yeah. I
What
mean,
they
that
always
should be
do.
the last thing they should do, but that's probably what they're gonna do, so that's unfortunate. All right, it's 7:30 p.m. Eastern time, so we're right on target for some FSQs, some fan-submitted questions. It's one of my favorite segments on Leading Off because the power is with the people. We get to check out what's happening on Twitch, see your questions. I've been getting texts all day for some great questions here that we were going to ask on the show in just a little bit. We're going to start off. Yeah, we're going to start off with a good one here that I just pulled up. All right. Who would be, who's the perfect fit for the Padres job? Now, we made an allusion to it earlier when we mentioned it in our note in the Ducks on the Pond, as Jace Tingler was fired by the Padres. So who is the perfect fit for that job? I mean, listen, this is a team that was supposed to be beyond expectations. You have a generational superstar player who doesn't really have a position on this team. You have a starting rotation that's kind of out of control, but should be in check. So who is the perfect guy to keep everything in order with San Diego? Is it Buck Showalter, who you want so badly on the Mets, Espo?
Showalter is definitely an interesting candidate, and he may very well get an interview with them. But as we alluded to before, I like Ron Washington for this job for San Diego. I think he's a veteran manager. Yet he hasn't managed as a full manager in about 7 or 8 years since he was last with the Rangers, but he has been a third base coach with the Braves for some time. And I think he's done really well with them. And I think he would bring a good culture to San Diego.
Shout out to Andrew Corey, who goes by Core sometimes in our Twitch chat for that question. And actually, congratulations to Core, who is now a newly married man. Was
Wow, that's
actually at
awesome.
his wedding on Sunday. Had a great time with him and the rest of the guys and girls. So congratulations to Christina and Andrew, the new Coreys. And thank you for that question. Here's another managerial question here. I guess we're looking at a theme now. It has to do with Alex Cora. In an era where managers mean nothing, why does Alex Cora make a difference for the Boston Red Sox?
Alex Cora is definitely a very unique manager, and I think he just fits perfectly in Boston. They empower him to kind of remix the game plans of the front office, and it's just one of those situations where he is the right man at the right time in the right place.
I wish it was that simple. And when it comes down to it, in this analytic-driven game of baseball, and this person who actually asked this question is named John Hernandez, who's been in our chat before as well. Shout out to John. Had a follow-up comment that I'm going to get to in a bit, which I absolutely agree with. Alex Cora has his spin from the front office on how to manage the game. And that's a guy who, yeah, I think his ears are in the front office, but his eyes are on the field in Fenway or wherever the Red Sox are playing. He knows the right situations, the right times to call on certain players to do certain things. And he takes some risk. He had Kyle Schwarber play first base, who really should be a DH, but to get that bat in, it had to work out. He made one bad error, then the next play he made the play perfectly, and he pumped his fist. So that was fun to see. But Alex Cora takes some risk, but he takes calculated risk, and you gotta love those kind of moves that Alex Cora can make. So yeah, all the respect in the world for Cora, even after everything, all the controversy he had to deal with a couple years ago with the whole cheating scandal and whatnot. But hell, if it's not electronic and this is pure and we're just gonna take it at face value, Alex Cora is doing a stand-up job with this Boston Red Sox team, and I think he's an exception. Now, on the flip side, and John had asked a similar question when it came to Aaron Boone, is it the right call or the wrong call to keep Aaron Boone for the Yankees? And that's a complete 180 of what that should be. He's somebody whose ears are in the front office and his eyes are in the front office. He's the sort of guy that gets the script and he reads the script verbatim. And that is just not how baseball should be fucking managed. You can't manage a team from the front office. You just can't. This is what Aaron Boone does.
I'm a big gut believer. You always gotta trust your first instinct, and yeah, we are gonna rely on the numbers and the data, but baseball is still got to be our old game, and maybe we're just purists that don't want to see the game just become totally managed by guys that have never played it before. But it's just it's tough for a lot of teams to embrace analytics and actually succeed at establishing analytics to make them better on the field.
Yep. Good stuff. Great question there from John. We have a question here from Corey Favaloro, who is our former guest host on the show when ESPO was away. Will there be a work stoppage in 2022, ESPO?
Oh man, I'm knocking on wood here, but I really hope not. I got to be honest, I haven't read a ton about it because I'm just trying to not think about it and hope that it doesn't happen and doesn't come to fruition. But on what I have studied up, it does seem like there are some problems on the horizon in terms of the new collective bargaining agreement, and there's going to be a lot of tension, I'm sure, this offseason. So as a fan, I can only hope for the best. So I'm going to be optimistic and say there is no work stoppage and that they can come to a consensus. But what the hell do I know?
There's been a lot of crazy things happening in baseball the last 2-3 years that I think I'd be almost surprised if there isn't a work stoppage at this rate. There's a lot to address to the game, a lot of rule changes that were a result of the COVID season. There is some good. I mean, I think the one good thing that came out of the baseball season was I think there was a very good handling of COVID. I think there was a lot of craziness that happened in the 2020 off season when they were trying to figure things out and couldn't figure out the games. And now the payment structure where it came, how the players are going to get paid based off the suspended season. There's a lot that's going to happen. And with this CBA, I don't know if the players and Major League Baseball are going to come to terms. They had a hard time coming to terms on playing games last year, and that's what they do. It's tough. I want to stay optimistic, but I think there really will be a work stoppage in this coming off season and going into the 2022 regular season, unfortunately. So we will stay tuned on that. Last FSQ that we have here. This was sent in from Zip Shooter 28. And he had asked, what will it take for the Rays to get to the promised land? Obviously, Tampa getting bounced in the first round of the playoffs is a shock, as they were a team that was looked at as a possible World Series contender. So what is going on in Tampa Bay Rays baseball? And how does a team that wins 100 games try to get back to where they were and beyond?
The Rays are a total enigma, and I love this question, and it's a really great one. Thank you for asking it, Mr. Zip Shooter.
Yeah.
I don't know if they ever will make it to the promised land personally. Maybe this is a hot take, but
I like hot takes.
I don't know if their shtick works in the postseason. I think the love of analytics and using of so many different pitchers and finding all these diamonds in the rough, it works over the course of 162 games because you could churn through a lot of people, but in short series, I just don't know if I trust them really. I mean, yeah, they made the World Series last year, but was last year a fluky COVID year? Who knows? Maybe they ran into a hot Red Sox team this year. But in the next year or two, I think with this current core that is possibly the best they've ever had in the generation of them being the Tampa Bay Rays and no longer the Devil Rays. If they can't win it with this group, with the Arozarenas and the Wander Francos and the Glasnows, health willing, I don't know if it's ever going to happen personally.
Yeah, I mean it's a fair take. It's insane because they just seem to get closer on paper with the team they put out, and it's like they're just not handling their business in the postseason. Kind of back to like the Yankee situation a bit. I don't know what it's going to take. I think they definitely need a fortified number one starter in that rotation. You have a lot of youth there.
You need
Tyler Glass now going
consistency and
down with his injury.
stability is what they need.
Sorry?
I'm sorry, I kind of cut you off there, but they need more consistency and stability in the rotation.
Yes.
They just keep trading guys year after year, and yeah, you can keep replenishing your prospects, but you need that continuity on the pitching staff.
I think they made the right move during the trade deadline and getting a Nelson Cruz. It was nice to see him take a chance on players that could fortify that lineup. And that lineup, again, very analytic based, very sabermetric latent lineup there. But I think they definitely need some thump in that lineup, legitimate forces to be reckoned with. And obviously with that payroll, it might be a little tough to come by. And if they can somehow maybe stretch the limit of what they can do with that salary, maybe there could be more for Tampa Bay. But it's been impressive what they've done so far on what they're able to afford. And I could definitely see this team back in the playoffs. It's just a matter of how do you make a 162 season stretch out to another 11 games and a championship win? And that's going to be a tough question for Tampa to answer.
Tough.
But it's an easier question for them to answer than a team like the Yankees, unfortunately. All right. That is it for fan submitted questions. Again, we have a quick announcement on the show. It seems like every week we have to let you guys know what's happening with our program. So yeah, definitely lean up and listen in. Next Monday, October the 18th, will be our next program. Obviously, we're coming off our Tuesday show, so this is coming off a Tuesday show, so it's a little odd that we've been back and forth. But we are going to be at a different start time of 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern time next Monday. Our original Savages in the Bronx spot, but obviously tonight's going to be the last in-season episode of Savages, so we have the luxury of doing a Monday show at 8. So that is going to be the next episode. Monday, 8 o'clock p.m. for episode number 27 will be in the championship series when that episode rolls around, ESPO. So there you have it. We'll see you here next Monday.
Take note.
Take note. And take care. We'll see you here again, 8 p.m. As I mentioned, make sure to stay tuned to us on Twitter at LOFF Podcast for all the news and notes. Thank you all for all your support. And yeah, postseason baseball, folks. Let's go any team besides the Astros and Red Sox, right?
Works for me. Let's go Giants, ESPO TD.
All right, folks. Take care.